From a war-torn and impoverished country, the turning point in 1969 transformed Korean Air into a world-class airline. With humble beginnings on a few regional routes, few could have imagined that Korean Air would rise to become a sky ambassador, showcasing South Korea to the world. Over more than 50 years, Korean Air has experienced both triumph and turbulence, major accidents, safety controversies, and even the infamous nut rage scandal. Yet instead of collapsing, the airline launched bold restructuring efforts, overhauled its systems, and made remarkable advances in technology, service, and corporate governance. Today, Korean Air stands as a national pride of South Korea, leading the landmark merger with Asiana Airlines to form an Asian aviation powerhouse. Join us as we explore the dramatic and inspiring journey of Korean Air, from its first runways to global prominence. If you found this story worth telling, like, share, and comment. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. Korean Air traces its roots to the aftermath of World War II. In 1946, a private carrier called Korean National Airlines was founded as South Korea's unofficial flag carrier. The government nationalized this struggling airline in 1962, renaming it Korean Airlines and relaunching it as a state-owned carrier. The nascent KAL operated a modest fleet, only 9 aircraft, and faced limited demand and managerial challenges. By the mid-1960s, it had introduced modern aircraft for regional routes, including its first turboprop in 1963 and first jet in 1967, but remained a small, domestic-focused airline. KAL's finances deteriorated, prompting the South Korean government to seek private investment by the decade's end. On March 1, 1969, the Hanjin Group, led by entrepreneur Chung Hoon-cho, acquired Korean Airlines, marking the beginning of Korean Air as a private airline. Under Hanjin's ownership, Chung Hoon-cho immediately set about revitalizing the carrier. Within months, new international services were launched to nearby countries in Asia, signaling an ambitious break from KAL's formerly limited network. In April 1971, Korean Air inaugurated its first long-haul trans-Pacific freight route, and by April 1972, it began passenger flights to Los Angeles, a significant milestone for a once regional airline. Though its early resources were limited, the privatized Korean Air leveraged Hanjin's logistics expertise to jumpstart growth and transform from a faltering national airline into a burgeoning international carrier. In the 1970s, Korean Air pursued a focused international expansion strategy, emphasizing cargo operations and selective long-haul growth. With limited domestic demand and outbound travel restrictions in South Korea, Chairman Chung Hoon-cho redirected the airline's focus toward freight and regional routes. Cargo became a strategic backbone, generating roughly 40% of total revenue. Korean Air also positioned Seoul as a transit hub for travelers connecting between North America and Southeast Asia, particularly from Japan. The airline expanded its network to key regional cities like Osaka, Taipei, Hong Kong, Saigon, and Bangkok. In 1973, Korean Air launched its first trans-Pacific passenger service to Los Angeles using the Boeing 747 and added a cargo route to Paris, although Cold War airspace restrictions forced circuitous routings. That same year, it became one of Asia's earliest Airbus customers by introducing the Airbus A300 for medium-haul services. By 1979, Korean Air had placed a massive order for 18 additional Boeing 747s, the second-largest commercial aircraft order globally at the time, preparing for further trans-Pacific expansion. In parallel, the airline ramped up operational capacity. It built a jet engine maintenance center and implemented IBM mainframe systems to streamline logistics and operations. A major strategic shift also occurred in 1976 when Korean Air launched its aerospace division. This move paved the way for helicopter production and involvement in South Korea's first domestic fighter program by the early 1980s. By the end of the decade, Korean Air had matured into a national carrier with global ambitions. In the 1980s, Korean Air entered a decade of ambitious growth, image reinvention, and critical challenges. The airline rapidly expanded its global footprint, adding key destinations like London, Frankfurt, Vancouver, and Jakarta, positioning itself as a serious long-haul competitor across Trans-Pacific and Europe-Asia corridors. Cold War airspace restrictions forced inefficient routings via Alaska, but Korean Air adapted until gaining access to Russian airspace in the early 1990s, enabling more competitive European operations. Domestically, the 1989 liberalization of outbound travel unleashed a wave of Korean tourism. Korean Air, already scaling up its fleet and routes, was ideally positioned to capture this demand. It also served as the official airline of the 1988 Seoul Olympics, playing a diplomatic role in showcasing Korea's modernization through upgraded onboard service and global exposure. A major rebranding in 1984 marked a strategic shift. The airline dropped Korean Airlines in favor of Korean Air and introduced a bold new livery with the Taegyuk symbol and powder blue fuselage, reinforcing national identity while distancing from a troubled past. Yet tragedy struck twice. In 1983, Korean Air Flight 007 was shot down over Soviet territory, killing all 269 aboard and sparking international outcry. In 1987, Flight 858 was bombed by North Korean agents, killing 115. While politically driven, both disasters spotlighted safety concerns and eroded public trust. In response, Korean Air began overhauling operations and infrastructure. It launched a cargo terminal in Los Angeles, adopted the Topaz computerized ticketing system, and deepened aerospace partnerships, supplying parts for Boeing from 1986 onward. In 1988, it placed a major order for 10 Boeing 747-400s to modernize its fleet. By decade's end, Korean Air had one of Asia's largest route networks and a rising international profile. But its accident history triggered growing calls for safety reform, setting the stage for a deeper transformation in the 1990s. Benefiting from South Korea's economic rise and the 1989 lifting of outbound travel restrictions, international passenger volumes surged. By 1993, the airline surpassed $3 billion in annual revenue. Korean Air expanded its long-haul footprint, becoming the first Asian airline to launch direct service to Africa. Simultaneously, its cargo division experienced robust 20% annual growth, ranking third globally by the mid-1990s. Fleet modernization was aggressive, acquiring Boeing 747-400s and MD-11s, though the latter were shifted to cargo after disappointing performance. Anticipating the opening of Incheon Airport, the airline laid the foundation to make Seoul a key regional hub. However, Korean Air's ascent was marred by an alarming safety record. Between 1970 and 1999, it experienced 16 hull loss accidents and over 700 fatalities. The crisis came to a head in 1997 with the crash of Flight 801 in Guam, killing 228. Investigators cited pilot error, poor crew coordination, and flawed training. 2 years later, Flight 8509, a cargo flight, crashed in London due to spatial disorientation, again highlighting systemic cockpit and training deficiencies. The global fallout was severe. Delta Airlines suspended its code-share agreement, and the US FAA downgraded South Korea's safety status to Category 2, restricting Korean Air's US growth. In response, new chairman Cho Yang-ho initiated a sweeping $200 million safety reform in 1999. The airline hired global consultants, upgraded training programs, standardized cockpit English, and implemented advanced simulators. Strategic cooperation with Boeing and Delta accelerated the adoption of best practices. These reforms restored confidence. Delta resumed its partnership, and Korea regained FAA Category 1 status in the early 2000s. Financially, the airline was also tested by the 1997 Asian financial crisis, recording over $500 million in cumulative losses. Korean Air implemented aggressive cost-cutting, sold aging aircraft, and used sale-leasebacks to preserve cash and continue fleet renewal, returning to profitability by 1998. By decade's end, Korean Air had laid the groundwork for its transformation. Its last fatal crash was in 1999, a milestone, underscoring the success of its safety overhaul and setting the stage for its global resurgence. Entering the 21st century, Korean Air entered a decisive phase of reinvention, marked by global alliances, fleet renewal, and a reassertion of safety and service excellence. A defining milestone came in June 2000, when Korean Air became a founding member of the SkyTeam Alliance, joining Air France, Delta, and Aeromexico. This partnership not only extended the airline's global reach, but also marked its rehabilitation after years of scrutiny. Chairman Cho Yang-ho played a central role, shaping SkyTeam's foundation and positioning Korean Air as a core player rather than a peripheral member. At the same time, Korean Air modernized aggressively. It expanded its wide-body fleet with Boeing 777s and Airbus, A330s, and, in 2004, ordered the Airbus A380 to reinforce its long-haul leadership. In response to rising low-cost competition, the airline launched Jin Air in 2007 to capture budget travel demand. The opening of Incheon International Airport in 2001 gave Korean Air a new hub to implement its Northeast Asia Gateway strategy. Internally, the safety and training reforms launched in the late 1990s began to pay off. Korean Air invested in simulators, upgraded corporate protocols, and restored partner confidence. Operational quality improved, with in-flight service earning international awards. Though the post-9/11 downturn tested finances, Korean Air's robust cargo division sustained operations. By mid-decade, profitability returned, and its Vision 2010 strategy prioritized growth, efficiency, and global connectivity. By 2010, Korean Air had completed its transformation from a carrier with a troubled past to a trusted global airline, ready for the challenges and opportunities of a new aviation era. The 2010s were a defining decade for Korean Air, characterized by fleet renewal, strategic partnerships, and internal upheaval. In 2011, the airline introduced the Airbus A380, the first in Northeast Asia to do so. With only 407 seats and an exclusive business-class upper-deck lounge, the Airbus A380 symbolized Korean Air's ambition to lead in premium, long-haul travel. These jets were deployed on high-profile routes such as Los Angeles, New York, and Paris, reinforcing the brand's global stature. Fleet modernization continued, with the introduction of Boeing 747-8Is in 2015 and Boeing 787-9s in 2017. By 2019, Korean Air operated over 170 aircraft, maintaining a young and fuel-efficient fleet. That same year, it carried more than 26 million passengers, a dramatic rise from 700,000 in 1969. Strategically, Korean Air solidified its trans-Pacific presence through a joint venture with Delta Airlines, launched in 2018. The partnership enabled joint scheduling and revenue sharing on U.S.-Asia routes. Delta shifted operations to Incheon's Terminal 2, making Seoul a major North American gateway. Korean Air also demonstrated alliance leadership as a founding member of SkyTeam and host of the IATA-AAGM in 2019. However, governance scandals tarnished its image. The 2014 nut rage incident and Chairman Cho Yang-ho's 2018 indictment drew scrutiny of Korea's chaebol culture. After Cho's death in 2019, his son Walter Cho assumed leadership, pledging reforms focused on service, employee well-being, and transparency. As the decade closed, Korean Air had re-established itself as a modern, globally integrated airline poised for growth. yet unaware of the historic disruption that awaited in 2020. The 2020s opened with the aviation industry's most severe disruption, the COVID-19 pandemic. As international passenger traffic collapsed in 2020, Korean Air's core business faced extreme pressure. Yet unlike most global carriers, it leveraged its cargo division to stay afloat. The airline rapidly expanded freighter capacity, converted idle passenger jets for cargo, and moved essential goods ranging from PPE to e-commerce shipments. Cargo revenue soared by 66%, making up over 80% of total income at the peak of the crisis. Korean Air achieved a 109 billion won operating profit in 2021, of the few major airlines to remain profitable that year. The pandemic also reshaped Korea's airline landscape. In November 2020, Korean Air announced a government-backed plan to acquire financially struggling Asiana Airlines. The deal aimed to consolidate South Korea's flag carriers and stabilize the sector. Over 3 years, Korean Air navigated regulatory reviews worldwide, agreeing to divest Asiana's cargo business and reduce route overlaps. The merger closed in December 2024, with Korean Air securing a 63.9% stake. The unified airline will become the world's 12th largest by international capacity and dominate over half of Korea's passenger market. Full integration is expected by 2026, with Asiana's brand retired and a refreshed identity for the combined carrier. Regulators mandated capacity safeguards and LCC support to preserve competition. Looking ahead, Korean Air plans network optimization via Incheon, streamlined low-cost operations, and continued fleet renewal with Boeing 787-10s and Airbus A321neos. As the sole SkyTeam-aligned Korean carrier, it enters a new era under Chairman Walter Cho, emphasizing service, sustainability, and governance. The post-pandemic decade promises to be one of Korean Air's most transformative. More than 5 decades after its privatization, Korean Air stands as a powerful testament to corporate transformation. What began as a modest, state-owned carrier has matured into a strategically agile, globally respected airline, synonymous with safety, innovation, and connectivity. Through calculated expansion, decisive leadership, and hard-earned operational reform, the company redefined its global standing. As it finalizes the Asiana merger and enters a new phase of consolidated strength, Korean Air is not merely flying higher, it is charting the course for Korea's leadership in international aviation for decades to come.